Hey everyone, don't be an if-only investor. So that was the topic of Susie Orman's podcast this morning, was don't be an if-only investor. And I was thinking, well, don't be an if-only person, don't be an if-only whatever. And so, when we're making our goals throughout our life and we're like, don't be an if-only parent, you don't want to be an if-only student, if-only resident, if-only human being, if only you could have made this difference in your life, if only entrepreneur, if only worker, if only whatever, right? So financially speaking, I wanted to take that title for a minute and just go, okay, if only, I don't know where this video is going because I didn't plan anything, but I just loved that title. And I'm thinking to myself, there's so many times in my life where I genuinely have been like, if only I would have done that, or if only I do that other thing in the future, then how far I will go. Or like, you're always like, if only I would have began 2 or 3 years ago. Like, so many people are like, oh, their education, like your employers, some of your employers, not every employer, has tuition reimbursement. But some of you could be 50 years old, 40 years old. Some of you could be 6 years old and you're going to retire in 5, 7 years. And you're like, it's too late to start saving up. You could only save maybe $5,000, $10,000. And so by the time you retire and you're 1 or 2 years into retirement on Social Security, and you're like, if only I would have saved that $5,000, $10,000, I would have $2,000 to fix my car or for whatever. And it's not necessarily that, like, per se. It's not this drastic thing to start financially speaking, or just in depth, like as a humane person, goal setting. I started writing a book like prior to the pandemic. I was cleaning my apartment and I was coming across the papers and I was like, yeah, I almost finished it. It was mostly in editing and it was like, okay, there was an author and I'm like, that came and I was like, you can ask her about the publisher, but with the opportunities with publishing as well, you have access to publishing with Kindle publishing and stuff like that. So at this point, it became about holding myself back and stuff like that. And so when you're holding yourself back, you can see that. And then another picture, it's really not defeating, but it's heart-wrenching and heartbreaking when you see that within yourself. Like, I'm in the welfare system, and so when I see myself holding myself back with a master's degree, and the first time I admitted that to myself, I was like, I'm not choosing this. And I was like, and I heard myself, and I'm like, it wasn't like I'm not choosing this. At the same time, the words came out, I can't believe it's like I'm choosing this, where there were actually words that came out. But at the same time, I was like, no, I'm not choosing this. There's a lot going on with different people in different situations. But without that said, if only, what else could I have done? So the goal with the book itself would be for me to be writing all the way up to, let's say I make it to age 67 or whatever age those income limits drop off, to have like 100 books written or whatever. There was a girl on Alux. It's on a YouTube channel. I haven't seen their videos in a really long time, but she had released like so many books on Kindle, and she's never sold at one point over like 4,000 or 5,000 copies. She's a simple seller, and she made like $1.3 million, whatever. And so that was like, oh, well, that's a nice goal. So the hard part for me was like, well, you should possibly also get into fiction writing, but it's a lot of work to do. Okay, do a whole fiction book to sell maybe $100 as well, So there's Google Meet on, it's like a meetup. It's not the same. I don't know if it's the same thing as Choose FI talks about on their podcast, but it was just like, okay, they have all of these different ideas. I've talked about it before. You can exercise during this period if that's your goal. They have sometimes art. They have actual meetups. Some of them are free. A lot of them are free. Some of them are digital meetups, and then some of them are actually in person. And you do this for a period of 30 minutes, and you're meeting right now. Like, I haven't done one in a while, but I was meeting on the app. I was working a lot of times on my vision board. I can't find it. I was working on my vision board. How many times I started that over? And I was working on my vision board because Steve Harvey said have like 300 things, maybe 150 or 300 things on your vision board, and see how many you have reached by the end of 365 days. Or just see how far you've come. And like, and not even a year had passed. Like, the first time I did my vision board, like 3 months had passed, and like I was already checking stuff off the list. And I didn't even set like actionable goal stuff, just happened. And it sounds real unrealistic because like these are like actual like visions to be like, okay, that would take potentially some time that actually happened, which is really weird. But anyway, I'm trying to think of what else. So as far as being an if only investor, if only this, if only that, blah, if only person, if only cook, if only you started your cooking classes. There are so many free cooking YouTube videos. I saw years ago, I was so into education when I was working on my master's degree. And I was like, in the beginning stages of my master's degree, I only had, of course, like, because I finished it with 36 hours, which is, 18 classes? Not 18 classes. How many classes is that? 12 classes is 36 hours. 12 classes. So with like 4 or 5 classes, I was looking for all these. What am I going to do after I finish my master's degree? I was like, what am I going to do? And so it was like, oh, what about chef school? Let me look at this chef school. And I was like, oh. And like in 2008, all the chef schools were like $100,000 a program. And then someone talked to me and they were like, chefs, there aren't any chef jobs. Like, they're not really paid that well. Like, they don't get really good jobs. But it wasn't even about that. It was just like the way they were advertising was really deceptive because I really didn't want it. I was just seeing what the cost was and what it was. And there was other stuff that I was a lot of interested in. I was very into like music and theater and all that other stuff. So there was freecycle.org, and I had a mixer, and this mixer that I had that I picked up from freecycle.org, you can pick up free stuff. I was like, okay, one day I'm going to save up. My finances were in disarray at the time, to save up for a six track or something. Okay, stay on focus. Something else is going on in my life. I don't want to talk about it right now. So anyway, the whole thing, let's see here. The whole thing about this idea, if you wanted to do a technical certification, there was a goal the whole time during the 2008, 2007, 2006. I was like, I want to go to an Ivy League school while I was working on my master's degree. I wanted to go to an Ivy League school. And get this, I wanted to go for a really cheap, preferably free. Impossible, right? So there was edx.org. They don't offer it anymore, but they were honor code courses and verified courses. Their verified courses are like $175 now. They were $50 when I went, and at the time, and I'm still registered, but like there was MIT, Harvard, Cornell, and there's IMF and a ton of other high status schools in there. And I was like, oh, I can get, it's really from edX, but it's through their school. So Harvard is on the certificate. And I was like, cool, I can do this. And I was like, and even though did I have my master's at the time? I might have, did I have it? I did not have it at the time. I did not have my master's at the time. Did I have it at the time? I don't think I had my master's at the time. I was 1 or 2 courses. I have the years right in my head, I was 1 or 2 courses from my master's in 2014, 2015, because I earned my master's in 2017. And that's when I took those certificates. But I had my bachelor's degree, of course. And that was really cool. And then I discovered, because I was trying to get back into it, I discovered Allison courses and Allison certificates, which at the time had free, which of course missed the Ivy League portion, but still free education, which was really awesome. So that was really cool, and I'm meaning to get back into that. I had stopped the Duolingo. That was another thing. I wanted something that was like, oh, I can learn Spanish. So for a while there, I was learning some Spanish until, God spoke to me and was like, no, you're supposed to be working on your master's degree. You've been wanting that ever since before you finished your bachelor's degree. And I was like, yes. And so, when you have that frame of mindset, and I was thinking about this as well, the way you be that if only investor, that if only person, that if only writer, that if only inventor, that if only business person. And I don't know if it's a secret, but to me it was a secret that I didn't even know what was going on with me. Like, it was a secret that I had that I was actively doing in my life. So for my bachelor's degree, and I probably told you all this, but it was already dead set. I had already earned that before I graduated high school. Like, I was going to college and I was going to graduate college. Does that make sense? Like, for probably a lot of rich people, they were probably going, because they might have been born into a rich family. They might have been trained that way by their rich parents. This is how you do a business. You work hard. You do this. You do this. You do this. And this is what you do. So they literally have, they do have that advantage. They do, a lot of people say they do work for it still, but there's a different education level. So I had that education level there as well, that advantage to say, hey, this is here for you, and you're going to do it. You're going to apply yourself, and you're going to go to college. So it was already dead set in my head, done. Does that make sense? So when it comes to them owning a business and having a successful, profitable, multi-million-dollar business, done. And so it's done in their head before it's done on paper. So how do you do that? I have no freaking clue. So that is also the secret, because you would have to also the secret after a while, when it came to the master's degree, I did not have it done. I might be the first person in my family to have a master's degree. Yes, I think that's confirmed on both sides. And I'm a cashier. So, the thing with that was, it was really hard for me, because with a bachelor's, I could lean on in my head, oh, they've done it, I can do it, they've done it, I could do it. And I didn't know that was going on until I was in the middle of my master's degree. I was like, my sister, she got summa cum laude and bachelor's and she's not doing it. Oh. And so that was really hard on me. And I was like, oh no, what's happening? And I didn't have that, but it was like, you really want this, was the switch. So I didn't have the same done that I really wanted. I looked for it because I had recognized it. Did I recognize that? I did not recognize it until I finished my master's degree. And then I was like, I didn't have the done, but I had the want. The done, when it came to like my home ownership, I got foreclosed on, yes. But that was a done. But that was also situational, because the home prices were there too. I think that it doesn't have to be a done. I think it can be a done for me with a master's degree. Right now, it's not a done, because it's literally a lot of like, oh, I'm actively choosing not to participate in money-making side hustles and stuff like that to bring up my income to home ownership, money-making level, and dedicate. Well, I now know more about what it takes to be part of the home owning process. And so it's not the done, but the done is there in my head if I want it, and I feel it. it's more done there, and it's like, but I'm a renter, and in my head it's like, but you're stuck there. You're not really stuck there, but it's actively chosen. So, and then it's really awkward. What else is over there? It's one of those things. If only you were that. What do you want to succeed at in being that parent and that brother, that sister, that aunt, that uncle, that grandmother? Might have a fantastic grandmother. I don't know if she even had a goal. She said to me, one of her last things, she said what she wanted in life was a family. I think she said she didn't want me to, she wanted to tell me, but she wanted a she wanted great grandchildren. And she didn't get any, while she was alive. But, and there aren't any right now on planet Earth. So anyway, the thing about it is, there was a done, I think, in her head, because she could give off that family, that nurturing to me when she spoke to me and came back to me whenever I had an issue, and I could go to her. She had that mental wisdom and capacity, and it came at such ease because, boom, it was solved. And you're like, well, what is that? And it's one of those things. If you want something to be done so much, there are situations where things already match up, so it's already going to be done. And those situations are, boom, it's done. And then the other ones where it seems more impossible, but you want it long enough, then it's like, continue fighting, and you're not that if only. But I switched over to this whole thing of done and if only, from if only, and that goal setting mindset. And I just want to face the simple fact. I keep repeating like the same thing and being about. I don't want this video to be much about nothing, but so what would be the simple point? Okay, so if you're sitting there and you're like, if only, you would have saved 40 cents a day, not even $1 a day. So we'll say 50 cents a day. 50 cents a day for 10 years is not it's half of $3,650. So we're going to take that. I got a calculator. $3,650 divided by 2, $1,825. So you're like, 50 cents a day. And then you're like, how much do you spend at the vending machine? Okay, it's not the vending machine. It's at, it's not even, people go, the coffee shop or cigarettes. And you're like, I don't want to quit smoking. Okay. Slow down your addictive habit. Instead of smoking 3 or 4 cigarettes a day, smoke 1 or 2. And, monitor your smoking habits and just bring it down so you add that 50 cents. Of course, the idea is that we have a spending time clock, not a spending time clock, a spending parameter in our head, where if we save somewhere, we fill that up. And we do it subconsciously. So if you don't spend somewhere, you end up spending it somewhere else. So the intent has to constantly be there. Once you save on the cigarettes and the money is still in the bank account, it doesn't mean to let up, which means take inventory of what you have. And that means literal inventory. I have taken inventory, not for this reason, of course. I've taken it in the past when I'll reference that. When I was in the past and I was saving intentionally, I was like, okay, let me take inventory. And then I took inventory of what I had. And then even when I had the inventory, if the money was there, I had the inventory, I was like, but I'm going to run out and I'm going to need all of this stuff at once. So let me get one more thing, because I had a balancing scale. But this was also pre-25% inflation. They said it was 6, 7, 8% inflation. No, it wasn't. Dollar Tree went up 25%. When Dollar Tree goes up 25%, and that candy bar was $1, there it goes up 25% to $1.25, was 85 cents at the store. That gives them permission to go up 20% to $1. And it's not just that. Of course, it's the proportion sizes. So everything else goes up proportionally 20%. And it's the cheap stuff that went up and skyrocketed more than the expensive stuff. So, and they said that in New York too. They said on a CNBC YouTube video, the New Yorkers that were in the higher income got bigger discounts on rental housing because everyone was leaving. Then, of course, that was another thing. A lot of units are sitting empty at some point a few months ago because the landlords don't want to have normal rent prices. They're sitting empty because the landlords don't want to have normal rent prices. Sounds really greedy. They're just hoping for population inflation. I don't know. They'd rather have homeless people. But anyway, I'm not trying to talk about that. I'm talking about if only. Because the homeless person is saying, if only I would have done this. But they don't have time to say that. Like, you're busy during the day. They're not occupied. I didn't occupy my head with, if only I would have did this, if only if I would have done that. I'm like, what am I? I mean, I was on Social Security disability, so I was like, what am I going to do over here? When I had income, I was like, what am I going to do day to day to day to day to day? I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do here today? Am I going to go on a bus? Am I going to go over here? What am I going to eat? Where am I going to walk to? I got in a lot of walking. I was out in the sun. I'm not thinking about what I would have done differently. I actually consider myself, looking back, I remember myself being a really frugal person. It wasn't anything that I can pinpoint my head to looking back. Even when I was even better at finances in the past, I haven't been able to look back. I had a mental breakdown at the time. So that stuff happens. And so, where we head to and the choices that we make are only the thing that gets you from 1, 2, 3, 4. So you go, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And you can decide how many steps there are and how many steps in between the steps there are. And it doesn't mean that it's a goal. It could mean just an action that you want to be going on or taking place to not be that if only whatever it is. So, peace out, Finance Nation. Like, comment, subscribe. It's free. And I'll see you next time.